Hi, my name is Shannon Power. Today I will be presenting on productive and counterproductive workplace behaviors for Psych 516, Industrial and Organizational Psychology for Liberty University, Summer 2021. My resource for today is our textbook, Organizational Psychology, A Scientist and Practitioner Approach by Thomas Jex and William Britt. I will be discussing 5 topics during this presentation: the history of organizational psychology, socialization, work-family conflict, job performance, and counterproductive behaviors. I will read each question before answering and have a stopwatch here for time. Okay. Our first question is, how have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. The event that I am choosing to discuss is World War II. Before World War II, organizational psychology didn't really exist. We focused more on the industrial side of psychology. Researchers were more focused on the business itself and how they ran. But after World War II, we saw an emergence of women in the work field, wives that had to leave the house that were pretty much stay-at-home moms before then, now had to cover factory jobs that were left open by the men at war. They also had to get jobs in order to feed their families. This is not something that we saw a surge of before the war. So with the diversity, we began kind of focusing more on the organizational side. On the other part of that, President Truman also began to interwork racial integration more into the work field as well. So not only was it more diverse with more women, but it was also more racially diverse as well. People started becoming a little bit more interested in how that new dynamic would work. Some other events that were discussed in our textbook were the Vietnam War. That was a big changer for organizational psychology, because young people especially were no longer living by societal norms, not only outside of the workplace, but in the workplace as well. Previous ways of business no longer suited their lifestyle, and neither did outward appearance in professionalism. So things began to change and evolve in that aspect. In our textbook, it also discusses the Soviet Union and the fall of communism and how that was quite possibly the most significant historic event in our organizational psychology. Next question is, describe the socialization process for graduate students in your program. Is this program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? For me, this one is a bit more about socialization. So in order to answer the question, I need to first define what socialization is. If you're anything like me, when you hear socialization, you think about kind of being around people, meeting new people, going out to work events or after dinner parties and things like that. But socialization, as far as we are concerned in organizational psychology, is more about the transition from being an outsider to an insider. That covers the recruitment process, the applications, interviews, onboarding, and mentorship. As far as the graduate program, I am a first semester student in the Industrial Organizational Psychology graduate program here at Liberty University. Being an online student, it's a little bit different. Typically, we would have an orientation and icebreakers on the first day, but since everyone is virtual, we don't really get that socialization. But one thing that Liberty does really well is still make us feel involved, and also definitely informs us of the culture, the communication, the values and the expectations of their students. One thing that drew me to Liberty is the faith-based education. That's something that I had when I was growing up. did go to public college. I graduated from North Carolina State University with a bachelor's degree in psychology. And now I am back into that faith-based learning because I found that that is what helped me the most. Our next question is, how can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? Some of the best ways to reduce work-family conflict is to start at the top. In the organization itself, we need to make sure that we are providing things that are a bit more family-friendly. These are things that we as researchers are finding are a bit more necessary in today's environment. These are things that are needed, such as like on-site daycares, gyms offering benefits, flexible work schedules, telecommuting, things like that kind of open up a bit more range for our employees. And it also trickles down to the supervisor role as well, to make sure that we have people in those roles who are empathetic, who are caring, and who are also role models. People that are willing to educate their employees on what benefits we do have to offer, to recognize when an employee is really trying instead of writing them off as lazy or being a problem because they have to miss work because of a sick kid or something like that. Kind of making sure that we are offering those programs for our employees, but also that we have the right people in place to make sure that those programs are being utilized, that our employees, when needed, they can go talk to them, that they are open, that they are educated, and that they are trustworthy. The next question is, imagine you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development. What techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensive as possible? So first, we also need to define workplace performance. Productive behavior refers to anything dealing with work. Anything that you do while you're at work is productive behavior. That's quite a broad category. So we as psychologists have kind of narrowed it down to what you do at work that pertains to work. Therefore, job performance is not just what you do at the job. It is what you do at the job that pertains to the job that you have. We break that up into two main categories. We have task-related work and extra work, or more so in-role and extra role. In-role refers to the job tasks that you are given based on your job. The book describes possibly like the nursing role. Like a nurse, one of their responsibilities is to draw blood. But the extra role would be to have great communication skills and allow patients to feel a bit more at ease, that they're not so scared or tense when drawing that blood. That would be an extra role. We discussed two lists or theories that came through job performance. The first one is Campbell. His was a bit more extensive. It was more so about military performance, but we've used it to translate to work performance as well. He had two categories for in-role, which were job specific and non-job specific. And he had about 6 to 8 non-job specific, the extra roles. They were things like communication, supervisor skills, management, administration, things like that we use for our job, but not necessarily the tasks that we do for the job. Murphy also he came up with another list that's a bit more utilized for our current work environment. His was a bit more simplistic and easier to explain. His in-role were simply task-oriented descriptions. And then the extras were like downtime, things that could be destructive, and then like interpersonal behaviors. Our last question is, what are some possible common organizational constraints, and how could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? I think it's again important to define counterproductive behaviors. They're volitional acts that harm the person or the company or the people within the company. It doesn't really have to do with intent, but it does have to do with their acts. They are also conscious decisions that are being made. Again, whether they're intentional or not, there are things that people decide to do that are harmful to the company itself or the people within the company. We kind of break that up into two categories. We have person-based behaviors, and we have four main topics there. We have conscientiousness, anger, self-control, and narcissism. Some of those don't necessarily sound like bad traits, like conscientiousness. We talk about people that are conscientious, like that are reliable and that are productive. So for person-based counterproductive behaviors, we would be focusing on people who have low conscientiousness, who are very narcissistic, who lack self-control, and tend to be angry and emotional on the job. Then we also have situation-based counterproductive behaviors, which are, things that are normal happenstances. Everybody's doing it, so it's fine. They're also stress-related and or injustice-related. Some constraints that may have an effect on these behaviors are absenteeism, that when people don't show up for work, whether that is physically or mentally or both, when we're short-staffed or when people are not here or not participating, it forms a constraint and then leads to counterproductive behavior. Another factor would be abusive supervision, when you have a supervisor or a manager or whatever the case may be who is above like other subordinates but are very unkind, that they're demeaning, that they take credit for other people's work, they're overly critical. It does also lead to counterproductive behavior because we lose morale because we don't have anything to work for. We don't have that positive reinforcement. Another one would be social undermining, which is kind of breaking up positive relationships that may be helpful to a person in the future, helpful to them as a person or for their reputation or for their success. If we break those up and kind of separate people, then that would be social undermining. The last one would just be devious and deviated behaviors that we see other people doing. Sometimes that we see them getting away with, or like there seems to be no consequence. We seem that we can do that too and be okay. This concludes my presentation on productive and counterproductive workplace behaviors. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.